The Galactic Union had existed for 10,000 years. In all that time, they had never encountered a species quite like humans. Every species in the Union had their place. The Vathir were the administrators, tall and proud with their 4 arms and purple skin. The Quellan were the scientists, small creatures with massive brains housed in environmental suits. The Sornathi were the philosophers, ancient beings who had seen civilizations rise and fall. Each species had evolved for a specific role, and the Union ran smoothly because everyone knew their purpose. Then humans arrived and broke all the rules. Bora Song was a physician working on a Union medical station. When she first noticed something strange, a human worker had been injured in a docking accident. The man's arm was crushed badly enough that most Union species would have died from shock, but the human survived. Even stranger, he was walking around 3 weeks later with a replacement arm. How is this possible? Bora asked her Quellan supervisor. The small alien studied the medical scans with its large black eyes. Their bodies are remarkably resilient. They heal from injuries that would kill us. They can survive in environments that would be toxic to most species. I don't understand how they evolved this way. Bora began studying human biology in her spare time. What she found amazed her. Humans came from a death world. Their planet had extreme weather, deadly diseases, and predators that hunted them for millions of years. They had evolved not to be the strongest or the smartest, but to be the most stubborn. They simply refused to die. Meanwhile, Hyun-Soo Kang was causing different kinds of problems. He was a programmer who had signed on to a Union data processing facility. The job was boring, but it gave him access to Union computer networks. Within 3 months, he had mapped most of their security systems. He wasn't trying to steal anything. He was just curious. But what he discovered shocked him. Union technology was advanced, yes, but it was also old. Very old. Their computer systems hadn't been updated in centuries. They worked on the same basic principles because no one had ever thought to change them. Hyun-Soo started making small improvements. He wrote better code, streamlined processes, and fixed bugs that had existed for decades. His supervisors noticed his work was faster and cleaner than anyone else's. When they asked how he did it, he shrugged and said, "I just thought about it differently." That phrase, "thought about it differently," when it was starting to worry Union officials. Dong-Min Yoon was thinking differently about trade. He had started a small shipping company with 2 old cargo vessels. Within a year, he had 20 ships and contracts across 30 systems. His secret was simple. He took risks that Union merchants wouldn't. A colony needed medical supplies during a solar storm. Union companies would wait for safe conditions. Dong-Min flew through the storm. A frontier world offered raw materials at good prices but had a reputation for pirates. Union traders stayed away. Dong-Min hired security and made the run anyway. His ships were crewed by a mix of humans and aliens who didn't fit in regular Union society. Outcasts, adventurers, and dreamers who saw in Dong-Min's company something the Union had forgotten: opportunity. Nari Park continued her work on Earth, but now she had help. Engineers from a dozen species came to study her methods. At first they were horrified. She mixed technologies that shouldn't be compatible. She ignored safety margins that had been standard for millennia. She built engines that shouldn't work according to Union physics, but they did work, and they worked better. A young Quellan engineer named Vix watched Nari modify a Union drive core using parts from 3 different manufacturers. "This violates every principle of harmonic resonance," Vix said, its translator rendering shock in its voice. Nari smiled. "Does it work?" "Yes, but then the principles need updating." Vix returned to its homeworld and submitted a paper about Nari's techniques. Half the Union's engineering community declared it impossible. The other half started experimenting. Within months, drive efficiency across the Union improved by 12%. The elder races didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. The Union Council met again to discuss humanity. The Vathir High Arbiter presented her findings. In 3 years, humans have established presence in 47 systems. Their population in space has grown from 0 to 2 million. Their economic impact is significant and growing. Their technological contributions are disturbing. Disturbing, a Sornathi Council member asked. "They don't respect boundaries," the Vathir explained. "They take our technology and change it. They mix techniques from multiple species. They innovate constantly. Our way of life is based on stability and tradition. They represent chaos," a Quellan scientist spoke up. but their innovations have benefited us all. Union ships are faster. Our communications are clearer. Medical techniques have improved. Perhaps chaos isn't entirely negative. The debate raged for weeks. Finally, they reached a decision. The Union would allow humans to continue, but with strict limits. No more than 100 human ships in Union space. No human settlements within core systems. No humans in government positions. The message was clear. Humans could exist in the Union, but they would never be equals. So-Hee Lim received the news in her small office on the Union diplomatic station. She had been appointed Earth's first official ambassador just 6 months earlier. Now she stared at the restrictions and felt her anger rising. She called Tae-Yang Kim, who was docked nearby. "They're trying to contain us." "I know," Tae-Yang said calmly. "I expected this. What do we do?" "We ignore them. We can't just watch us," Tae-Yang said. "We've been ignored for centuries while we fought and died on our little world. Now they want to ignore us while we're actually useful? No, we'll keep doing what we've been doing. We'll keep trading, building, and helping anyone who asks. Eventually they'll realize they need us more than we need them." He was right. The restrictions barely slowed human expansion. Humans simply worked around them. They partnered with alien companies to bypass the ship limit. They settled on worlds just outside core systems. They took jobs that technically weren't government positions but gave them influence anyway. The Union had created rules designed to control humanity. But humans had spent their entire existence finding ways around impossible situations. This was just another problem to solve. Woo Jin Lee watched all of this from Earth and prepared. He knew the Union's restrictions wouldn't last. Eventually, something would happen that forced them to choose between their rules and their survival. When that moment came, humanity needed to be ready. He trained soldiers in zero-gravity combat. He designed new weapons that combined human and alien technology. He studied Union military doctrine and found its weaknesses. The Union had been at peace for so long that their military had become slow and predictable. Woo Jin had studied human history. He knew that peace made people soft. Earth had never had lasting peace. Humans knew how to fight because they'd never stopped fighting. The galaxy was stable. The elder races maintained order. The younger species followed the rules. Everything was as it had been for thousands of years. But deep in Union space, sensors detected something that made military commanders nervous. The Karathi swarm had been dormant for 3 centuries. Now they were moving again, breeding, expanding, heading toward Union territory. The elder races remembered the last time the swarm attacked. It had taken the combined might of the entire Union to stop them. Millions had died. Worlds had been consumed. That was 300 years ago when the Union was stronger and more unified. Now they were comfortable, divided by politics and bureaucracy. And they had a new problem to deal with: the chaotic, unpredictable humans who refused to stay in their place. The galaxy was about to discover whether that problem could become a solution. Everything changed after Talvos. The restrictions on humanity were gone, but something else had replaced them: respect, curiosity, and for some of the elder races, fear. Within months of the battle, Tae-Yang Kim found himself commanding a Union task force. His crew was a mix of 17 different species, and none of them questioned taking orders from a human. "How do you want us to approach the patrol route?" his Vathir second-in-command asked. Tae-Yang studied the star chart. Union doctrine called for a predictable pattern that covered maximum space with minimum risk. "Let's split into 3 groups and vary our timing. If pirates are watching, they'll expect us to follow the standard pattern. Let's surprise them instead." The Vathir officer's forearms made a gesture of acceptance. "As you command." They caught a pirate group 2 days later, exactly where Tae-Yang predicted they'd hide. The pirates had been ambushing Union patrols for months using the predictable routes against them. Tae-Yang's unpredictable approach caught them completely off guard. Across Union space, similar stories played out. Human traders like Dong Min, Yoon were teaching alien merchants how to find new opportunities. Human engineers worked alongside Quellan scientists, combining human creativity with alien precision. Human doctors shared techniques that other species had never considered. Bo-Ra Song ran a medical exchange program that brought together physicians from 20 species. "Your people heal remarkably fast," a Sornathi doctor observed during a demonstration. But how do you treat patients whose biology is nothing like yours? We learn, Bora said simply. Every patient is different, even among humans. We're used to adapting. But not everyone was happy with humanity's rising influence. In the Union Council chambers, debates grew heated. So-Hee Lim sat in the gallery, now Earth's official ambassador, and listened to the arguments. The humans have proven themselves valuable, a young Quellan counselor said. We should integrate them fully into Union leadership. They've been part of the Union for less than 5 years, a Sornathi elder responded. The Vathir have led for 10,000 years, the Quellan for 8,000. What makes you think, species that discovered FTL travel yesterday should have equal say in galactic affairs? Perhaps because they saved us at Talvos while we were still debating proper procedures, the Quellan shot back. The argument continued for hours. So-Hee watched and said nothing. She'd learned that sometimes silence was more powerful than words. Meanwhile, Ji-Woo Kim was making a discovery that would change everything. She was a scientist studying evolutionary biology, specifically comparing human development to other Union species. What she found was both amazing and troubling. Every Union species had evolved on relatively stable worlds. The Vathir came from a planet with predictable seasons and abundant resources. The Quellan had developed on a world with minimal environmental changes over millions of years. Even species from harsher worlds had evolved in consistent conditions. Earth was different. Earth was chaos. Ji-Woo presented her findings to a gathering of Union scientists. Human evolution was shaped by constant environmental stress, ice ages followed by warming periods, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, deadly predators and diseases. Our planet tried to kill us in every possible way. How did you survive? A Vathir scientist asked. We adapted. Constantly. Continuously. We evolved to be generalists who could thrive in any environment. Other species optimized for specific conditions. We optimized for change itself. A Sornathi philosopher in the audience stood slowly. Do you understand what you're saying? You're claiming humans are evolutionary designed to adapt faster than any other species in the Union. I'm not claiming it, Ji-Woo said. The data proves it. Give a human 6 months in a new environment and they'll find a way to thrive. Give them a problem that seems impossible, and they'll find a solution. Not because we're smarter or stronger, but because we're built to adapt. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. If humans continued growing at their current rate, in a century they would dominate the Union not through conquest, but through simple adaptability. They would be everywhere, doing everything, because they could adjust to any role faster than anyone else. The Sornathi Council convened a special session. These ancient beings had guided the Union for millennia. They'd seen species rise and fall. Now they discussed what to do about humanity. We must limit their expansion, one elder argued. Not through sanctions, but through integration limits. Restrict how many humans can serve in key positions. Slow their colony growth. Give the other species time to adjust. You're proposing we hobble them because they're successful? Another elder challenged. I'm proposing we maintain balance. The Union has survived because each species knows its place. Humans upset that balance. The debate lasted for weeks. Finally, they drafted a proposal. Humans could continue their expansion, but with quotas on leadership positions and colony development. The restrictions were carefully worded to sound like protective measures rather than limitations. When the proposal reached So-Hee Lim, she read it 3 times. Then she requested to address the Union Council directly. The chamber was packed when she spoke. Representatives from every member species attended. The elder races sat in their high seats, confident that this young ambassador would accept their wisdom. So-Hee stood at the central podium and looked around the chamber. You call us a backwater world, she began. You're right. We come from a backwater, a world where the water itself could kill you, where the air could poison you, where the animals hunted you and the diseases consumed you. We survived by learning one simple truth: adapt or die. She paused, letting her words sink in. You've spent 10,000 years building a civilization based on stability, each species in its proper place, each role clearly defined. It's beautiful, it's orderly, and it's made you weak. Protests erupted. So he raised her voice. The swarm attacked, and what did you do? You followed procedure. You debated. You assembled properly. While you maintained order, they consumed worlds. We didn't save you at Talvos because we're better warriors. We saved you because we're not afraid of chaos. A Vathir counselor stood. You dare suggest our ways are inferior? I suggest your ways are different, so he replied. And that's good. We need your wisdom and your knowledge, but you need our adaptability. You need humans who will break rules when rules need breaking, who will find solutions that don't fit in your ancient texts. She looked directly at the Sornathi elders. You want to limit us because you're afraid that we'll upset your perfect order. But your order is already breaking. The swarm proved that. The next threat will prove it again. You can try to limit us, or you can learn to swim with us. The chamber erupted in argument. Some species supported her words, others were outraged. The elder races sat quietly considering. When the vote came, the integration limits failed. Barely. The margin was thin, 3 votes out of hundreds. But it was enough. Humanity would continue unrestricted. That night, Taeyang met with Sohee and other human leaders. You made a lot of enemies today, he said. I know, Sohee replied. But I also made allies. The younger species see us as proof that the elder races aren't eternal. That's dangerous. For who? Nari asked. For everyone, Sohee said. We've just told the galaxy that the old ways are dying. That's liberating for some species, terrifying for others. We need to be careful. Power vacuums are dangerous. She was right to be concerned. Across Union space, change was accelerating. Species that had been minor players for millennia were now demanding greater voices. The careful balance that had maintained peace for 10,000 years was shifting. And far beyond Union borders, the Karathi swarm was watching. They had tasted humanity at Talvos. They had learned that these new creatures fought differently. The swarm's collective intelligence was adapting too, planning a new strategy. The galaxy was changing. The old order was cracking. And humanity stood at the center of it all, neither by choice nor by design, but simply because they refused to be small. The Sornathi had a saying, the stone that disrupts the pond becomes the pond's center. Humanity was that stone. The ripples were spreading, and soon everyone would discover whether those ripples would reshape the galaxy or shatter it completely. 6 months had passed since Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was fracturing like broken glass. In the war room deep beneath Seoul, Fleet Admiral Tae Choi studied the holographic display showing star systems across known space. Red zones marked Council military buildups. Blue zones showed human territories. Yellow zones indicated neutral systems caught in the middle. There were far too many yellow zones turning red. Another trade convoy was turned back at the Helion Gate, reported Director Sora Yoon, head of Earth Intelligence. She moved through the room with quiet efficiency, her sharp eyes missing nothing. The Council is enforcing the embargo hard. They're inspecting every ship, confiscating anything they claim is human technology. Tae rubbed his temples. The Admiral was a veteran of humanity's expansion wars, a man who had commanded fleets for 30 years. But this was different. This was the entire galaxy against them. What about the Deltan system, he asked. They were talking about opening trade relations. Sora's expression darkened. The Council found out. They sent warships, threatened orbital bombardment unless the Deltans cut all contact with us. The Deltans complied. Damn. Tae slammed his fist on the table. They're making examples, showing everyone what happens if they deal with humanity. It's worse than that, Sora said, pulling up new data. Our intelligence network intercepted coded messages. The Council is planning assassinations. They want to eliminate human colony governors, military leaders, anyone who might organize resistance if things escalate to war. Tae's face hardened. They're that scared of us? They're terrified, Sora confirmed. Our economic withdrawal hurt them badly. 17 species are facing medical crises because they relied on our nanomedicine. 32 systems are experiencing power shortages because our fusion reactors were cheaper and more efficient than anything the Council offered. We didn't just leave the Council. We took the foundation of their economy with us. An alert chimed. The holographic display shifted, showing a live feed from the outer territories. Captain Minho Lee's face appeared, his expression tense. "Admiral, we have a situation," Minho said. He was young for a captain, only 35. But he commanded the EDS Defiance with skill that impressed even the most experienced officers. 3 Vraxian cruisers just entered human space near Colony 7. They're demanding we submit to inspection. Tay leaned forward. "What's your status, Captain?" "We're outnumbered and outgunned, sir. Vraxian cruisers are twice our size. But they're also slow and predictable. If they start shooting, I think we can take them. Do not engage unless fired upon," Tay ordered. "We're not giving the Council an excuse to call us the aggressors." "Understood." Lee out, but the channel barely closed before it reopened. Minho's face was grim. "Admiral, they fired on us. Disabled our communications array. They're moving in to board." Tay's decision was instant. "Defend yourselves, Captain. Show them what humanity can do." What happened next would be talked about in bars and military academies for years to come. The EDS Defiance, a single human destroyer, faced 3 massive Vraxian cruisers. The Vraxians expected easy prey. They had fought in wars for centuries, using formations and tactics that were ancient when humanity first discovered fire. But Minho Lee didn't fight like they expected. He split his ship's vector randomly, making the Defiance's trajectory impossible to predict. He used microjumps, tiny faster-than-light bursts that the Vraxians considered wasteful and dangerous. He fired missiles that didn't go straight but curved and spiraled, using guidance systems that adapted in real time. The first Vraxian cruiser exploded when it zigged when it should have zagged, flying directly into a missile spread. The second took critical damage when the Defiance appeared directly beneath it, firing at point-blank range into its vulnerable underbelly. The third tried to retreat, but Minho was faster, crippling its engines before it could escape. In 15 minutes, a single human ship had defeated 3 Council cruisers. The battle was recorded, transmitted, shared across 1,000 worlds. Within hours, every species in the galaxy had seen the footage. The message was clear. Humanity might be outnumbered, but they were not helpless. "Admiral," Sora said, watching the news feed scroll past. "We're getting coded messages from dozens of species. They want to talk. Secretly." Tay raised an eyebrow. "The Council's not as unified as they pretend." "Not even close. The smaller species are tired of being pushed around. They saw what we did leaving the Council, and they're inspired. But they're afraid. Then let's give them courage," Tay decided. "Send responses. Arrange meetings. But keep it quiet." Over the next weeks, human diplomats met with alien representatives in hidden locations, abandoned stations, unmarked ships, dark corners of neutral space. The message from Earth was simple. Join us and we'll protect you. Stand with us and we'll stand with you. 3 species took the leap. The Deltans, tired of Council threats. The Karathi, whose people were starving under Council trade restrictions. The Mintar, who had been a Council member for 200 years but never had a real voice in decisions. When they announced their withdrawal from the Council, the galaxy watched to see what would happen. Would the Council crush them? Would humanity abandon them? The answer came swiftly. "This is Fleet Admiral Tay Choi of Earth's United Defense Fleet," his message broadcast across open channels. "The Deltans, Karathi, and Mintar are now under Earth's protection. Any attack on them is an attack on humanity. Any blockade of their systems will be broken. Any threat to their people will be met with force." The Council wanted to isolate Earth. Instead, they isolated themselves. Chancellor Vextor responded within hours, his rage barely contained. "These traitor species will be brought to heel. Their rebellion will be crushed. Earth cannot protect everyone." But humanity didn't stand alone anymore. Within a month, 7 more species withdrew from the Council. Then 12, then 20. They called themselves the Free Alliance, and their message resonated across the galaxy. No more bowing to ancient species who ruled through fear. The Council's authority was crumbling. Director, Sora brought the final piece of news to Ty's office late one night. "Admiral, we have confirmation. The Council's three founding species, the Vraxians, Corthalians, and Selenites, have formed a military pact. They're gathering fleets from across their territories. How many ships? Tay asked, though he dreaded the answer. Preliminary estimates suggest 10,000 warships, maybe more. Tay was quiet for a long moment. 10,000 ships. Humanity had perhaps 500, and their new allies might contribute a few thousand more. The math was brutal. Where are they heading? He asked quietly. Sora met his eyes. Earth, Admiral. They're coming for us. Tay stood and walked to the window, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere up there an armada was gathering. The largest military force in galactic history, united in one purpose: destroy humanity and make an example of everyone who dared to defy the Council. Get me President Shin, Tay said. We need to prepare the defenses and send a message to all our allies. If they want to back out now, we'll understand. But if they stand with us, they need to know this will be the fight of our lives. As Sora left to carry out his orders, Tay remained at the window. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people who were about to face an existential threat. He thought about his daughter, only 10 years old, who still believed the universe was full of wonder and possibility. He wouldn't let that universe burn. If the Council wanted war, humanity would give them one they'd never forget. The swarm returned with a vengeance. They struck 20 systems simultaneously, emerging from deep space in numbers that turned sensors white with contacts. This time they were different, organized, strategic. They'd learned from Talvos. The first wave hit Union mining colonies and supply depots, cutting off resources. The second wave targeted communication hubs, isolating systems from each other. The third wave attacked refugee roads, creating chaos and fear. Within 2 weeks, 40 billion Union citizens were fleeing toward core systems, and the swarm hadn't even begun their main assault. The Union Council convened an emergency session. The debate was predictable: which systems to defend, which to abandon, how to coordinate a response across 300 member species. They'd done this before 3 centuries ago. They knew how to fight the swarm, but this wasn't the same swarm, and this wasn't the same Union. After 2 days of debate with no decision, Tae-Yang Kim walked out of the council chamber. He found Wu Jin Lee waiting outside. They're going to deliberate while the galaxy burns, Tae-Yang said. I know, Wu Jin replied. That's why I already sent the message. What message? To everyone who's tired of waiting for permission. Within hours, ship captains from 40 species responded. Young officers frustrated with slow procedures. Merchants whose trade routes were being destroyed. Soldiers who wanted to fight instead of debate. Scientists with ideas that their superiors called too radical. And humans. Hundreds of humans from every corner of Union space. They gathered at a frontier station called Haven's Rest. No official authority had called them. No proper chain of command existed. They came because someone needed to do something and the Union was too busy talking. Nari Park arrived with 36 ships she'd modified with her latest innovations. These won't win any beauty contests, she told the assembled captains. But they're fast, tough, and full of surprises. Hyun Soo Kang had something even more valuable. I've been analyzing the swarm's behavior since Talvos. They're learning from us, yes, but they're also predictable in how they learn. They're optimizing, which means they're becoming less flexible. I can disrupt their coordination if you get me close enough to a hive cluster. How close? Wu Jin asked. Very close. Suicidally close, Wu Jin smiled. That's the kind of plan I like. The coalition fleet numbered 300 ships. Nothing compared to the thousands the swarm commanded. But size wasn't everything. These crews had chosen to be here. They believed in action over procedure. And they had something the swarm couldn't understand: hope. Mi Sun Han led the first strike. Her squadron hit a swarm supply convoy and used a new tactic Nari had developed. Instead of fighting the swarm ships directly, they herded them toward an unstable gas giant. The gravity well and radiation did the rest. 12 swarm vessels destroyed without firing a shot. Seung Ho Park took his Marines on another boarding operation, but this time they had new equipment. Bora Song had developed a biological weapon specifically designed to target swarm organisms. It wasn't poison. It was a virus that disrupted their hive-mind connection. Marines deployed it in 3 major swarm vessels, and hundreds of smaller ships lost coordination. The victories were small, but constant. The coalition fleet moved fast, struck hard, and vanished before the swarm could respond. They used guerrilla tactics that regular Union forces would never approve. They took risks that military doctrine said were insane, and it worked. Other species started joining them. A Vathir admiral brought 6 ships and her entire crew. A Quellan research vessel that had weapons no one knew they'd been developing. A group of Sornathi who were tired of their elders preaching patience while worlds burned. The coalition grew to 500 ships, then 800. Each vessel brought new ideas and new capabilities. Nari worked day and night integrating different technologies. What emerged was a new kind of warfare, asymmetric, adaptive, and absolutely unpredictable. The Union Council finally made their decision. They would defend the core systems and abandon the outer territories, a strategic retreat that would save billions of lives but surrender a third of Union space. So He Lim stood before the Council one last time. The Coalition fleet has won 37 engagements against the swarm. We've saved 14 colony worlds. We've evacuated 18 billion refugees, and we did it without asking your permission. Your actions violate proper command structure, a Vathir counselor said. Our actions save lives, so he shot back. While you debate, we fight. While you plan retreats, we win battles. We're not asking for your approval anymore. We're asking if you want to join us. The chamber fell silent. Then a young Quellan counselor stood. I support the coalition. One by one, representatives from younger species joined her. The elder races watched their carefully maintained order crumble before their eyes. Finally, a Sornathi elder stood. Perhaps, the ancient being said slowly, we have been old too long. We remember the last war with the swarm. We fought properly and sacrificed millions. Perhaps it is time to fight improperly and sacrifice less. The vote was swift. The Union fleet would integrate with the coalition under joint command. Wu Jinli would lead tactical operations. Traditional Union commanders would handle logistics and support. It was messy and broke every rule, but no one could argue with the coalition's results. The combined fleet numbered 3,000 ships, not enough to match the swarm's numbers, but enough to hurt them badly. Hyunsu Kang stood on the bridge of the coalition flagship and prepared to execute his plan. The swarm operates on a network principle, he explained to the assembled commanders. Destroy enough nodes and the entire network collapses. I've identified 12 primary hive clusters. We hit them all at once. That means splitting our forces, a Vathir admiral objected. Against every principle of combined warfare. Union principles, Wu Jin said, which is why the swarm won't expect it. The assault began at dawn on Haven's Rest, an arbitrary time marker that somehow felt right. 12 strike forces hit 12 hive clusters simultaneously. The fighting was brutal. Each cluster was defended by hundreds of swarm vessels, but the coalition forces fought like demons. They used every trick, every innovation, every insane tactic they'd developed. Misunhan flew through a debris field that sensors said was impossible to navigate. Sungho Park's Marines boarded a hive ship so large it had its own gravity. Nari Park's modified vessels pushed their engines past safe limits and somehow held together. Hyunsu Kang deployed his virus in 6 of the 12 hive clusters. The effect cascaded through the swarm's network like dominoes falling. Communication broke down. Coordination failed. Thousands of swarm ships suddenly became thousands of individual confused vessels. The Union fleet, fighting with new tactics learned from the coalition, exploited the chaos. They won system after system. The swarm's advance reversed. In the end, it took 3 months to drive the swarm back beyond Union borders. The coalition lost 400 ships and tens of thousands of lives. But they'd won. When it was over, the Union Council met again. This time, every species sent representatives, not just the elder races. The chamber was crowded and noisy, nothing like the orderly sessions of the past, so He Lim addressed them all. You asked what humans could do. We showed you. We took your technology and made it better. We learned your languages and taught you ours. We fought your battles and won them our way. But here's the thing. We didn't do this to prove we're superior. We did it because when you see a galaxy in trouble, you help. That's what humans do. A Sornathi elder, the same one who had spoken before, rose slowly. For 10,000 years, we have led the Union based on age and wisdom. Perhaps it is time to lead based on merit and courage instead. The restructuring took months. The rigid hierarchy dissolved. The elder races retained their wisdom and experience, but younger species gained equal voices. Decisions were made by capability, not tradition. The Union transformed from a stratified empire into a true alliance. Earth, the backwater world that had been dismissed for centuries, became a founding member of what they now called the New Union. Not because humans had conquered anyone, but because they'd proven that survival and cooperation mattered more than tradition and pride. Tae-Yang Kim returned to Earth a hero. But when reporters asked him how humanity had achieved so much in less than a decade, his answer was simple. You had 10,000 years of peace to grow. We had 10,000 years of barely surviving. Turns out survival builds something peace never could, the refusal to accept that anything is impossible. He stood on Earth, looking up at stars that now held millions of humans and billions of friends. The backwater world had changed the galaxy, not through force or conquest, but through adaptability, determination, and the simple human refusal to give up. Nari Park opened a new research facility where engineers from 30 species worked together. Borasong ran a medical academy training doctors in techniques from 100 worlds. Woojin Lee taught strategy to officers who had once thought humans were primitive. And in the Union Council chambers, So-Hee Lim worked alongside counselors from across the galaxy to ensure the new Union would be better than the old one. Stronger, more flexible, more ready for whatever challenges came next. Because challenges would come. The galaxy was a dangerous place. The warning came from a mining colony in the Talvos system. The message was brief and terrified. They're here. The swarm is here. Please help. Then silence. The Karathi swarm moved through space like a living nightmare. They were a hive mind species that existed only to consume and reproduce. Each individual creature was barely intelligent, but together they formed a collective consciousness that was terrifyingly smart. They stripped entire worlds of resources, converted the materials into more swarm ships, and moved on. They had no interest in communication or negotiation. They only knew hunger. The Union's response followed centuries-old protocols. First, verify the threat. Then convene the military council. Next, debate the appropriate response. Finally, assemble a fleet from multiple species, each contributing according to their designated role. The process would take 6 to 8 weeks. The swarm consumed the first colony world in 5 days. Woojin Lee watched the reports coming in from Union space. Each day brought news of another system falling. Refugee ships fled in all directions, overwhelming nearby stations. The Union fleet was still assembling, still following proper procedures while the swarm grew stronger with each conquered world. We have to do something, Borasong said. She was treating wounded refugees who had escaped the swarm's advance. The stories they told were horrifying. The Union is moving too slowly. I know, Woojin said. He was already planning. Earth had 47 ships scattered across Union space. They weren't military vessels, most were converted cargo haulers and mining ships. But they had weapons, and they had crews who knew how to fight. He sent a message across all human channels. Anyone who wants to help, meet at the Talvos system. We're going to buy the Union some time. Tae-Yang Kim received the message while hauling supplies to a frontier station. He changed course immediately. Nari Park got the message in her engineering bay and started loading every weapon and shield generator she could fit onto departing ships. Dongmin Yoon diverted his entire fleet. Within 3 days, 40 human ships gathered at the edge of Talvos system. They faced a swarm force that had already consumed 3 colony worlds and was numbering in the thousands. A Vathir admiral contacted them from the assembling Union fleet. What are you doing? You can't fight the swarm with that small force. You'll be destroyed. Probably, Woojin admitted. But we'll slow them down. That's all you need, right? Time? This is madness. Your ships aren't even proper military vessels, we know. But we're here anyway. The admiral was silent for a moment. The Union acknowledges your courage. We will remember your sacrifice. We're not planning to die, Woojin said. We're planning to win. The first engagement happened near the 4th planet. The swarm had sent 300 vessels to scout ahead, while their main force consumed another world. Union doctrine called for defensive positions and coordinated fire patterns. Woojin ignored it completely. Scatter and hunt, he ordered. Don't group up. Don't be predictable. Make them chase you. Mi-Sun Han piloted one of the fastest human ships. She dove into the swarm formation like a hawk among pigeons. Her ship wasn't built for combat, but it was quick and maneuverable. She fired at a swarm ship, damaged it, and then fled. The swarm vessels pursued her, right into a debris field. The swarm ships were efficient but not creative. They calculated the fastest route through the debris and took it. Mi-sun had calculated that route too. She'd already positioned 3 damaged human ships in their path, ships that had been stripped of everything useful and loaded with explosives. The blast destroyed 12 swarm vessels. Mi-sun escaped with only minor damage. Across the battlefield, 40 human ships fought in 40 different ways. They used asteroids as cover. They lured swarm ships into each other's firing lines. They faked damage to draw enemies into traps. Every human captain fought differently because every human captain thought differently. The swarm's collective intelligence struggled to adapt. It was designed to fight enemies that followed logical patterns. Humans weren't logical. They were creative, reckless, and completely unpredictable. But creativity alone couldn't win against overwhelming numbers. After 6 hours of fighting, the humans had destroyed nearly 200 swarm ships. But they'd lost 8 of their own and the rest were damaged. The main swarm force was almost finished consuming the colony world and would soon turn its full attention to the human fleet. That's when Seung-ho Park did something nobody expected. He loaded a shuttle with 60 Marines, all the ground troops the human fleet could spare, and flew straight at the largest swarm ship. "What are you doing?" Woo-jin demanded over the radio. "Ground forces are useless in space combat." "Who said anything about space combat?" Seung-ho replied. The swarm ships were biological structures grown rather than built. They had armor and weapons, but they also had vulnerable points where biological systems processed resources. Union doctrine said attacking these points was suicide. You'd have to get inside a swarm ship to reach them. Seung-ho's shuttle crashed through a weakened section of hull. His Marines poured into the swarm vessel wearing combat armor and carrying weapons designed for close-quarters fighting. The inside of the swarm ship was like fighting through the digestive system of a giant creature. Everything was organic, alive, and trying to kill them. Yejin Bei had been studying swarm communication patterns for weeks. She'd discovered that each large swarm ship had a biological node that coordinated smaller vessels nearby. Destroy that node and the smaller ships became confused and disorganized. "North corridor, 30 meters. Yejin's voice crackled over Seung-ho's radio. She was back on the human command ship, analyzing sensor data in real time. "The node should be behind the purple membrane." Seung-ho's Marines fought their way through swarm defense organisms, creatures that were part ship, part immune system. They lost 12 soldiers reaching the node. When they finally destroyed it, the effect was immediate. 43 swarm vessels lost coordination and started drifting. Human ships moved in and destroyed them quickly. Other Marine teams copied Seung-ho's attack. It was dangerous and costly, but it worked. Union observers watched in disbelief as human ground forces boarded enemy vessels and destroyed them from the inside. The battle lasted 3 days. When the Union fleet finally arrived, they found humans still fighting. Only 15 human ships remained operational. Thousands of crew members had died, but the swarm's advance had been stopped. More importantly, the swarm was confused. They'd never faced an enemy like this before. An enemy that boarded their ships. An enemy that fought without predictable patterns. An enemy that should have been dead 3 times over but kept finding new ways to survive. The Union fleet joined the battle with overwhelming force. Together with the battered human vessels, they drove the swarm back. The victory belonged to the Union's superior numbers and firepower. But everyone knew the truth. The humans had held the line. After the battle, the Vathir admiral contacted Woo-jin personally. "I owe you an apology. We thought you would die heroically and buy us a day or 2. Instead, you held for 3 days and discovered tactics we never imagined. We're used to fighting impossible odds," Woo-jin said simply. "How did your ground forces survive boarding swarm vessels? Our simulations show it's suicide." "Your simulations assume rational behavior," Woo-jin explained. "Our Marines assumed they were already dead and fought anyway. Turns out when you stop worrying about survival, you become very dangerous." The battle recordings spread across Union space. Military academies studied them. Strategists debated them. Young officers from a dozen species requested transfers to human-led units. The elder races watched in silence. They'd fought the swarm before using conventional tactics. It had cost millions of lives. The humans had used unconventional tactics and saved thousands. One Sornathi philosopher summed it up. They fight like the galaxy is trying to kill them. Perhaps because for them, it always has been. The restrictions on human expansion were quietly dropped. No official announcement was made, but suddenly human ships were welcome everywhere. Human advisors were requested by Union commanders. Human engineers were sought after by every species. Earth had proven itself in blood and fire. The Backwater world had shown the galaxy something new, or perhaps something very old, the will to survive no matter the cost. But the Battle of Talvos was only the beginning. The swarm had been pushed back, not destroyed, and now they knew humanity existed. The next attack would be different. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could really do when properly motivated, and that prospect frightened the elder races almost as much as the swarm itself.